3, 2, 1. Hello guys, welcome to the Sin Bin Hockey Show. I screwed up the opening, that's my bad. I didn't press the go live button, but that won't stop us. It is August 16, 2019. Oh shit, I feel horrible. It is August 16, 2019, and we're going to talk about hockey here in the middle of the summer. It doesn't matter if there's no hockey going on. We're going to scrape the bottom of the barrel. We found some news to talk about, and I am joined with the one, the only, my friend, Jake Link. How are you, Jake?
Yep, we don't care. We'll talk about fucking ice surface temperatures.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, there you go. So, as you guys could have seen, today's topic, we're going to talk about Mitch Marner. Is he an overrated player? We're also going to get into our main topic of today, and that is players that we hate. We also might talk about players that we love, and then players that we love to hate. But without further ado, why don't we get into today's topic? Jake, how are you? How's your week so far?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I just watched my cat take a shit. Um, so things are okay. Things are going all right in the Link household.
Yeah,
My cat is about 23 pounds, and that's fat for a cat. And his litter box, his head always pokes out of. So when he takes a shit, he just kind of looks at you, but then he just has to like bury it afterwards, and then now he's eating, so he can make more shit.
yeah, there you go.
So there
Speaking
we go.
about shit, I let Jake know this in the beginning when we were off air, but I ate Angelo's. You guys don't know what Angelo's is. Out here in Maine, there's a Greek restaurant called Angelo's. Horrible customer service, but I had their chicken, and inside the chicken, I don't know if it's a spice. I don't know what it is. It just always gives me the urge to do explosive diarrhea. So there might be a moment in today's show. Don't be alarmed. I might have to get up, rush to the bathroom, evacuate my bowels. I might not even have time to wipe because that's the sacrifice I make for you guys. If that's the
Matt,
case,
Matt, Matt,
Jake
Matt,
will
Matt,
entertain
Matt.
you in the
You
meantime.
can, I'll be okay. You can have time to wipe.
I'm taking a shower after anyway. I won't wipe.
Uh, don't you can wipe. No, you can wipe. Don't do that.
Yeah.
There's been times like I've been in like a restaurant, like had to go take a shit in a restaurant, and and I noticed there's no toilet paper, so then I'm like,
Oof.
okay,
Oof.
let me go to like the next stall or the next
Mm.
or like another restaurant or something that's like within walking distance.
Yeah.
And it's you would think like, oh, it shouldn't be that bad. Oh, it's bad.
Yeah.
It gets bad.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith said, I guess in the chicken, the spice was salmonella.
Yeah. Speaking about that, we got some good company in the chat. We got Jalen Daniel. He's a student, by the way. He says, Matt. I say Jalen. Talking Habs. He says, hi, guys. Hey, Rick. Uncle Vax says, evening, y'all. And Kevin, as you mentioned a few seconds ago, says, salmonella. So we got kind of a packed show. Why don't we go ahead and just jump into the news? And our first player, it's personally a topic I'm so sick of hearing about. So that's why we're talking about it. It's about Mitch Marner. And I don't know if you guys have seen it. You can definitely search it up on YouTube. But Sportsnet released a video on Mitch Marner called, Is Mitch Marner the most overrated player in the NHL? And on it, they had a guest called Andrew Berkshire. And he said a quote that I'm about to read to you guys. He said, he might be the most overrated player in the NHL. He's primarily a playmaker. Looking at the scoring chances created, Connor McDavid is at the top. Crosby is third. Crosby is second. Matthews is third. John Tavares is 12th, tied with Sebastian Aho. 22nd is William Nylander. And then 26th is Mitch Marner. So there's a stat looking at scoring chances generated. And Mitch Marner, despite having a really high point total, is only at 26, behind William Nylander, who had a pretty bad season by all means. That makes him fourth on the Maple Leafs. He also said, and I quote, John Tavares is the one driving the bus on that line. not Mitch Marner. And that raised the question in my mind. And that question is Mitch Marner an overrated player? Because for me, the definition of overrated is a player that gets a lot of press, a player that gets a lot of mouths talking. And I get that Toronto's a big market. I get that, they're going to talk about the Leafs mostly on Sportsnet. But when they make a video about Mitch Marner every day, I just think to myself, out of all of the crops of free agents, restricted free agents, is he better than Braden Point? I don't think so. Is he better than Rantenen? You can make the argument, but you can make the argument against it. The same for Sebastian Aho. And why is Mitch Marner getting all of the press? So that's why, in my eyes, he's overrated. What do you think about that, Jake?
See, I'm looking at his stats, and not that bad. 94 points last year, which is impressive. He's always been somewhere around in the 3 seasons he's played, a 20-goal scorer. So he's not by any means a bad player. But I kind of agree. Let's face it, John Tavares is the driving force. John Tavares will make you and I become a 60-point-a-year player.
Oh, if I played on the same line as John Tavares, I'm pretty sure I can pot in 1 or 2 goals. He'll give me an easy stick and tap.
Yeah. He'll make everybody better around him. So if he went to like a struggling team, if he went to the Columbus Blue Jackets, would we even be talking about Mitch Marner? Probably not.
No.
I think right now what it comes down to, why Sportsnet, which, by the way, I don't get in the United States, so this might have to be something I have to sign up for. So with that being said, that just goes to show they do the same thing over here. They try and generate stories out of nothing just to keep people talking about hockey in Canada. It's like you guys in bagged milk. Just
yeah.
So that's just that's all I'm saying about that. Is that's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of Canada,
I don't think he's.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me finish your thoughts.
I think he's a good player. I wouldn't say overrated or underrated. I just think he's a good player. But I think that the press that he's getting makes him very overrated.
Yeah. And speaking about Canada, Habs826 says, what are your thoughts on Joey Hishton's comments on Nick's... Excuse me, there's the chicken. Fuck. What are your thoughts on Joey Hishton's comments on Suzuki? Do you think he will make the team? And will he be a top 6 forward? Okay, let me first answer the first part of that questions. I briefly looked at the Hishton article. I didn't read it totally in depth. I kind of went over it quickly. One of the most revealing things for me was what he said about Nick Suzuki's skating, because so far what I heard from the kid, he's great hockey IQ, great passing, incredible passing actually, great shot. The one facet of his game that maybe needs a little bit more work is his skating. And Joey Hishton is saying, hey guys, listen, his skating isn't all that bad. So when you see that one little aspect of his game that was considered bad, and then Hishton says that it's actually a good part, this is like a superhuman player. He has no weaknesses. The problem with Nick Suzuki is, and if you guys looked at my top 10 Montreal Canadiens prospects videos, you may have heard me say it, so I'm going to reiterate my thoughts. If not, click on that video. It's a pretty good video. Got a lot of clicks. The problem with Nick Suzuki is that so far, he's played junior with Owen Sound. He's played junior with Guelph. He's too good for the junior league. He is too good for the OHL. He's like a man amongst boys. He never really has to try that hard. I mean, for lack of a better phrasing, he doesn't have to try that hard. He can just work his magic and he'll put up points on the board. That won't happen in the NHL. And that leads me into that second part of your question. Do I think he will make the team and be a top 6 forward? I definitely think he'll be a top 6 forward moving on, especially if he plays on the wing, because the Canadiens don't have that good of a depth on the wing. Do I think he'll make the team this year? Absolutely. Do I think he'll start on the team? Maybe not. You might see him have a stint in Laval, get used to the pro level, And then throughout the year, if there's an injury, if Brendan Gallagher explodes his hand again, you might see Nick Suzuki make an appearance, get called up, and he might stay for the rest of the year.
Who you're talking about? He reminds me of Reed Boucher, who used to play for the Devils.
Yeah.
Reed Boucher, one of these players, he just went nuts in like the juniors and stuff like that, and he, and he came to the NHL and didn't figure it out.
Yeah, he's better than Reed, though. I think he's way better than Reed.
You think? Oh, you think he is? Okay.
Well, I remember Reed when he first was starting in junior. You were texting me saying he broke Steven Stamkos' record, and then if I remember, he didn't get drafted that high, right?
No, he. I don't. I think he was like intellectual property of the Devils or something like that, but he was still in junior. Yeah. Like however that works with you're when you're in the juniors, but yet you still get drafted.
Yeah.
And you're still a part, but they own the rights to you, but you could still play for your junior team. But.
I think he might be in the Canadian system now. Let me just
do
a quick Google search. Reed Boucher.
Last I heard, he was. Last I remember, he was traded to Nashville.
Oh, maybe then. He played with Vancouver last year. Either way, he's not. I mean, maybe Nick Suzuki's got to be a little bit better, but just from the way you describe, like I don't know the Canadians, AHL farm system. Yeah.
By any means, and I'm not going to even pretend I do.
Yeah.
But just from what I was reading and what you were describing him, he reminds me of a Reed Boucher.
Yeah, I could see the comparisons, but he's better. He got drafted. I'm talking about Nick got drafted 13th or 15th or something like that. And just if you look at the odds and the statistics, you'll see that players drafted that high, they most of the times make the NHL. Whether or not they're going to be an impact player, that's to be seen. I think he has the potential, definitely. But my one worry, I guess, is a little bit his work ethic. I'm not saying he doesn't work hard, but just being in a league where he's just a man amongst boys, there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be a little transition to be had. And it made me a little worried watching those preseason games, especially that first one, because he was nowhere to be seen. And he just has way more experience than the other players that were there. But Uncle Vax says Rob Schremp. Do you remember Robbie Schremp?
The name sounds vaguely familiar.
Well, Rob Schremp got drafted by the Oilers, if memory serves him right. And he was supposed to be the star, kind of like Boucher. And his career, call it bad development, call it whatever you want. He just career completely derailed. Was it the Oilers or the Islanders? They have similar colors. But he recently came out.
They used to meet in the 80s. They met a couple times. Think about how confusing that was in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Oh, did you ever see the memes when Connor McDavid first got drafted by the Oilers? He said in an interview something along the lines of, I want to end my career wearing the blue and orange. And someone photoshopped him in an Islanders uniform.
Oh, God, if he came over here, that'd be crazy.
Well, speaking of the Maple Leafs, let's turn to our second story. And did you see that video I posted earlier today?
No, I didn't get a chance to.
Oh, okay, great, because I want to hear your unfiltered reaction here. Well,
okay.
There's a player that is on the Maple Leafs, or should I say used to be on the Maple Leafs. His name is Igor Oshiganov. And they pretty much got him from the KHL. He played 1 year. Didn't really work out. He wasn't the best defenseman. He only got something like 7 points. And he said that he's going to go back to the KHL. Obviously, his little stint with the Maple Leafs wasn't really a pleasant one. Well, he had some interesting words to say about his former team, the Maple Leafs. And it involved asses. Yes, you heard that right. I put the quote up on the screen. He says, "It's so different overseas. When you get to a locker room, it seems all the players are ass lickers. That they just wait for a coach to come to lick his ass. They always run to him, laugh of his jokes, make up to him. In Russia, nobody would talk to such a player. So, Jake, what's your opinion on Oshiganov and the whole ass licking?
I just think this is a really bad Yakov Smirnoff joke. In Russia, players don't lick ass.
Yeah. That's
No,
I always like when players they speak of their mind. They speak from the heart. It gives us some great content like this. And there's not that much content.
Country.
Yeah. All of that ass licking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that, maybe you didn't lick ass enough. You know, maybe that's why you're going back to fucking Russia and waiting in a bread line.
Yeah, but I think, to be fair, I think he meant kiss ass. But just with that language barrier, he said lick ass. I guess if you French kiss, it would count as lick. I still count it as a kiss. I don't know. I don't have that much experience licking ass.
We call it tossing salad in the States.
Tossing a salad. Yes. Yeah. I don't have that much.
No, I never understood that because there is nothing like a salad that's around that area. I toss salads with a fork.
Oh boy!
No, think of that. That makes no sense. The term tossing salads.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think maybe mixing the fudge. Maybe that would be a better term.
Oh boy!
Let's go make hashtag mixing the fudge.
Yeah. To get
licking the bowl.
Yeah. If you guys want your daily ass licking contents, make sure to subscribe to the Sin Bin.
Yeah. The Sin Bin. Yeah. We talk about more than just hockey and other sins.
Yeah, licking ass.
Is licking? I know anal sex is a sin, but is licking ass a sin? I know you're a very religious guy.
Yeah, licking ass. Oh yeah. I mean, I've had it done to me, but the people that have done it, they're not here to tell the story. Why don't we move on to the next quote?
No, why are you going to leave us at that nugget? No pun intended. Then tell us, let's move on.
Yeah, I want to leave you guys with a cliffhanger there. But in the meantime, let's move on to our next story, and that involves Martin St. Louis. He's Hall of Famer. Is he a Hall of Famer? He will be in the Hall of Fame. He submitted his all-time Tampa Bay Lightning roster as part of a project for The Athletic. And this is what it looked like. Jake, just to give you a description. Oh, you saw it? Yeah. No, but that would have been a... Oh, yeah, Richie's there. He put him second line center. I missed him. Yeah. Well, yeah, for goalies, Javi Bulin. Yeah. Surprisingly, Point, he's a fairly young player. He has him on his all-time Lightning team, so that just... I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure. This is a little bit past my era. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Richie St. Louis.
At first I was like...
I like how humble he was, and he put himself on the second line.
You just read my mind. I was going to say, I like how he was humble. He put himself on the second line. But at the same time, Cooch, he's just a generational player. How are you going to put yourself above Cooch? Anything else?
Nah, I mean, I'm looking for a franchise that's, I want to say struggling, but hasn't been a transcending freaking, oh my God, this, they've had some great players go through them.
Oh yeah, definitely. Vinny, people that are a bit newer to hockey, they look at Vinny LeCavalier when he was with the Flyers, and they're probably thinking, that old man, what a piece of shit. But when he was with the Lightning, He
Oh
was
yeah,
incredible. He was something else.
definitely, definitely.
And there's a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans listening, I hope. Uh, I don't know if you guys remember, but Bob Gainey had a trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning back when LeCavalier was there. He was going to acquire LeCavalier in exchange for Subban, Carey Price, Thomas Platanic, and I think a first-round pick. And for whichever reason, the league saw that. Gary Bettman saw that, and he didn't allow it. But had that trade went through, it would have set the franchise back years. So that would have been a disaster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But that shows you how good Vinny was. They were willing to trade Price, Subban, Platanic, and a first for him. That was back when Platanic would score like 30 goals, something like that, 25 goals. So
What do you think about when GMs get involved with trades?
when GMs,
No, I'm sorry, not GMs, commissioners. Of course, obviously GMs are involved in trades.
really,
What do you think about a player to player trade that they just say, "Want to come here and I go here"? No, what do you think like when the commissioner like denies a trade?
well, to be honest, I don't have much research about that. I don't know what's the reason they would deny a trade. I don't know why exactly a commissioner, what the reason would be. But I I don't know, it's a good question.
I like this. I like this guy's I suck titties for bucks. You know, it's funny when you send an email through Gmail, that's what comes up as your name. So I hope you're not using that Gmail account for any resumes, because I can already, unless you're milking cows.
Well, still sucking the cow's titties, I don't think that would give you any jobs. He says, what a trade by Gainey that would have been. Yeah, so I'm not imagining that actually was supposed to happen. I remember they put it up on TSN, and I looked at it at the time, and even at the time, I was like, what the hell was Gainey thinking? And Gainey is pretty much hit and miss, I think we can all say. I mean, there's always going to be that Ryan McDonough trade that people hate him for, but he's always been kind of hit or miss, and that was definitely a miss. That would have been a miss. But I overall, contrarily to a lot of Canadians fans, I actually like Bob Gainey. Maybe it's because I'm a little sympathetic because his daughter actually died tragically. She fell off a boat and got lost in sea, which is horrifying. This just got depressing. Say something funny, Jake.
Why do you sound like you're about to laugh?
No, that's
No, you sound like you're about to laugh. You're like, or you just gotta go get turned on. You're like, yeah, look at her like a buoy out there,
no,
bobbing
no.
all around. Yeah, Jake, excuse me, I gotta go use the bathroom.
Yeah, I think my crying is pretty similar. My crying voice is pretty similar to my laughing voice, which is probably why I get a lot of dirty looks in funerals. Like, have some respect, you jackass.
So you know what's funny? My okay, I shouldn't say. Maybe I shouldn't say. You know what's funny, and then say what I'm about to say. When my friend's mom died, no, it was a hoot, a real knee slapper. No,
Sorry.
we had a it was my best friend mom. She passed away and suddenly, and then a friend of mine, she messaged me and said, "Hey, are you going to Mike's mom's funeral?" Blah blah blah. Yeah, and I could tell she was a little upset. So I said, joking around, I said, "I'll go, but please don't flirt with me. It's very inappropriate."
Oh
And
no.
my friend Becky, I always say this. I've been doing this to her since we were kids in high school. Always
Yeah,
fucking with her and stuff.
yeah.
So we're there, and they're going through the service and stuff, and she's sitting next to me. She could tell I'm getting a little emotional, so
Yeah.
she puts her hand on my back, and
Oh
I just
wow.
look at her and I start laughing. And then after we got done the funeral, I
What?
looked at her and said, I said to her, I'm like, I told you not to flirt with me here. It was inappropriate. She's like, I knew you were gonna fucking say that. I go, you know what though? It helped. It kept me from probably crying and bawling my eyes out
Yeah.
to to laughing because I was remembering what I texted you.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh
so
man,
yeah, no. So
that
yeah.
that reminds me of a story, and it's a little depressing. But when my mom passed away, there was this guy that came to the funeral, and it surprised me when I saw him. You know, when you're in high school, the guy who takes photos for the classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. His name is Grant. He showed up, and he's a photographer. He's actually a really good one because if he needed you to smile in the photo, he'll say a really funny joke or he'll say something stupid to get your smile to be a natural smile, like you're laughing. And like, it was a funeral, and I was obviously really, really devastated. And I was sitting on the bench, and there wasn't anyone, and I was crying. And then Grant, he comes next to me, and he goes to me, and he's like, "Hey Matt, I know you're really sad, but I was just wondering, what are your wildest sex dreams? Mine's involve trapezoids." And he starts like lifting off a bunch of sex objects. And dude, I went from crying to laughing hysterically like that.
I think there's a thin line between being sad and happy. It has to come from like the same part of your brain
Yeah.
because it just like when my dad passed, there was even there was even like some funny times like during the whole process and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
like you got to keep it light. You got to try and keep it light. It sucks. Life's too short though. You can't just
You
you
can't
know
you can't just be
you
listening
can't.
to YouTube hockey podcasts.
No, no, no. You guys should go out and go meet somebody.
Yeah, yeah. Go lick some asses.
Go
So
lick some asses. Yeah, go taste some digested peanuts.
I suck titties for bucks says, been sending resumes for months now, no answer. I guess that might be the issue. Like now he's discovering that. Oh boy. It's getting philosophical. Why don't we move on to our next story?
Yeah, yeah. We're all just composting training. And okay, no,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, for those of you listening, we got 4 people, I believe, in the chat. Make sure to share it on every social media platform. Get some people in here. Get some people to subscribe. But for the meantime, we're going to move on to our next story. And that involves another top-end RFA, and that is Mikko Rantenen. So we talked about Marner, who gets a lot of coverage to the point where I want to rip my eyes out. Like, seriously, Marner on Sportsnet, I hear him more often than I hear white girls say the word literally. But Colorado Avalanche, they're yet to make a contract offer to forward Mikko Rantenen. And the two sides have yet to sit down and have any discussions, per Adrian Datter. Now, that completely shocked me, the fact that they haven't even talked yet. They haven't even sat down. And I think I have an explanation. I think it's because they're waiting to see. They're waiting since Colorado has all of this cap space. They're going to see what Marner gets. They're going to see what Point gets. And since Rantanen is in that same class, they're waiting for them. Then they're going to give them an amount that's comparable to them. Do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, that's just sports is a business.
What do you think?
That's all it is.
I'm curious to know, what do you think about Rantanen in terms of that? A lot of people are going to say he gets all of those points because he plays with McKinnon, who is, in my opinion, my favorite player in the NHL. What do you think about that? Do you think he's a self-starter, or is he getting a lot of help from McKinnon, or is it a combination of both?
It comes down to the thing. Would Malkin be good if Crosby wasn't there?
But they don't
Would
play much on
Backstrom?
the same line, though.
Yeah, I know, but it opens it up.
Yeah,
Would Backstrom be good if Ovi wasn't there?
yeah,
Stuff like that. Stuff. It comes down to chicken or the egg.
yeah,
You know, a player like Rant, maybe. I mean, it sounds very political, the answers I'm giving, because you don't know. You don't know. Like, you don't know if Nate McKinnon goes down and he doesn't miss a beat, then, I mean, yeah, there's only one way to tell,
yeah,
and it's stuff like that. Players are going to constantly, you know, that's how these bad contracts get out there, is from these players, and I think that's what Colorado's trying to do, is not give throw bad money at a. There's a phrase: throw good money at a bad situation. I don't know, and I think that's what they're trying not to do. And
Yeah.
it's smart. It's smart. They have a ton of cap room too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for me, if I were to answer that situation I gave you, I think for me it would be a combination of both. I think he's a great, amazing young talent, but he wouldn't be getting north of 90 points had it not been for
yeah,
McKinnon.
yeah.
He'd maybe be in like the high 70s, maybe low 80s, in my opinion. But Mikko Rantanen, he didn't get drafted all that high. He was kind of a mid first round pick, which is still pretty high, but compared to what the points he's putting up, you would think he would have been drafted higher. For me, Mikko Rantanen is what Puljujarvi could have become had he developed well. Just big, fast, goes to the net. But unfortunately, Puljujarvi doesn't go to the net. He wasn't developed well. But I always looked at Rantanen as that player that Puljujarvi could have become. Just that winger that's big, has size, has skills, has hands, has everything, speed. But he's yet to make it in the NHL. I think he got fucking four points or 4 goals last year. That's disappointing. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we move on to our next story? And this is our last story before we get into today's topic, which is our most hated players, the players that we hate the most. And that is, what is it? All right, that is Nashville. The Nashville Predators are getting a new scoreboard. So as you see, the picture on the left, that's their old scoreboard. And the picture on the right, that's the new scoreboard, what it's going to look like. Sponsored by Bridgestone Arena. We don't get paid for that. Much, much bigger. It's a pretty lame story, but the only reason I'm putting it up is because there have been a lot of memes that I thought are hilarious, including this one, where, Jake, you can't see it yet, but did you see that that one season where the Nashville Predators were raising banners for the stupidest shit? Well, in case you guys didn't hear about it, the 2017-18 season, the Nashville Predators raised 3 banners. One was for the President's Trophy, one was for the Western Conference champions, and I believe the other one was for the division champions, which are 3 things that don't mean anything. And they're out there posing in front of it as if they won the cup. So they raised the banner for getting a new scoreboard.
They put a banner. You always put a banner up, but you don't have to have a ceremony unless you win a cup.
Oh yeah, the cup.
But yeah, no, that's funny.
For me, the cup in the playoffs means so much. Like, I'll give you an example. For me, the Calder Trophy weighs more than the MVP. That's just my personal opinion, because it's cool that you get it done during the regular season, but how come you can't transfer that to the playoffs? I know it's easier said than done, but like,
yeah, of course.
Case in point, Kucherov. Let me just finish off. Kucherov, he won the MVP this year, but I just remember him for not leading his team past the series. You got anything to say?
Well, I mean, but hey, listen. Claude Lemieux in 1995 and Claude Lemieux was almost traded. You know, he was the playoff MVP. You never know who could be the MVP.
Yeah.
You know, Kucherov was the MVP of the season last year, but, you know, and I think it's good that you separate the MVP and the, what's it called? The MVP and the playoff MVP.
Yeah.
You know, because they're 2 different. Yeah. Because playoffs are a completely different animal in the NHL.
2 different.
I don't have to
beasts.
say, you know it, I know it. You know,
Everyone
you
knows
start learning about players that even on your own team, you're like, whoa, where's this guy been?
Yeah, and there's players that they're not particularly all that good in the regular season, but there's something about the playoff atmosphere. They just click. Justin Williams is one of them. Canadians fans, Lars Eller. He was one guy that in the regular season he couldn't score for shit. Then he'd get to the playoffs and all of a sudden he became the Danish Gretzky.
It's Bryce Salvador in 2012 for the Devils. The dude had he led all defensemen in points for that whole entire playoffs, and then in the regular season, the guy was a freaking cone,
Yep. I suck titty for bucks. That's the guy's name. I'm not making a statement. He says, thoughts about Liney's comments. Doesn't sound like a guy that wants to stay in Winnipeg. If I'm the Habs, I try to package Drouin with a prospect and picks for him. And Talking Habs, correct me. I said the Calder. I meant to say the Conspite. Thanks, Talking Habs.
Yeah.
So
the Calder's the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And also,
I meant to say Conspite. Yeah. It's like that video where I got Edmonton and Calgary mixed up.
Everybody send all your hate towards Matt.
Yeah. Well, I suck titties. About the Liney comments, I don't know if you made any recent comments. I would like to know them. If you could write them down in the chat, and then I'll comment. But as for the trade, you would want to package Drouin and a prospect. I mean, depending on the prospect, say if it's I don't know. Realistically, if the Winnipeg Jets want to trade Laine, I think it would take something like Drouin and Suzuki and maybe like a second rounder. Because let's face it, goals come at a premium in this league. If you score 40 goals, you'll get a bigger contract than someone who scores 40 assists. And Drouin, he's a relatively unproven commodity. He had a few lackluster seasons, and they're not just going to settle for him. They're going to want more. They're going to want one of our brightest prospects, Nick Suzuki. And they're going to want to pick with that. If it's 1-to-1 Drouin by a miracle, they just asked for Jonathan Drouin. I mean, Bergevin, put your finger on the trigger, send Drouin over, bring in Patrick Laine. But it won't be 1-to-1. They're going to ask for something like Drouin and a Suzuki or a Caulfield, like a category prospect. And then maybe a second or a third round pick. Saggy Nutsack, what are up with the names? I think that was Kevin Smith.
I think that's Kevin Smith. Yeah.
Is he trying to say that Kevin Smith has a saggy nutsack? But anyway, he's just giving examples of players.
It'd be funny because, like I said, when you email, if you're looking for a job and these people didn't change their names back. Sorry, Mr. Nutsack, we will not be looking at your resume any further.
Yeah, but take care of that nutsack. He says Dale Weiss, Rene Bourque, he's just giving example of players that just light it up in the playoffs. Dale Weiss, his nickname is the Dutch Gretzky. I'm not sure why, but for some reason his teammates called him that. The Dutch Gretzky. Saggy Nutsack, I can't say with a straight face. Saggy Nutsack says, well, you never know. It's still business. You've got to be prepared for anything, Laine said Friday. But yeah, you never know where you're going to play next year. So I'm just prepared for anything. Wow. I was not aware of those comments. I might make a video about it, but those comments are eerily similar to the comments Rasmus Ristolainen make. Whether or not he's actually going to get traded, I mean, I would like to see it because his value is extremely high. This is a player who last year scored 40 goals. If I believe someone fact-checked me, his rookie season, he got pretty damn close to 40 goals. His value is still high.
Where do you think he ends
Go ahead.
up?
44?
Where
44.
Where do you think? Okay. Yeah. Where do you think he ends up?
Where do I think he ends up in terms of goals, or what team?
A team. If they're going to try and pull a deal on him. Because I have a very interesting team that I don't know why, just it's jumping out at me, and I could see him there, and I think he would fit.
Where?
It's Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the cap space. I'd need to check it out. But you see, it's funny because if we talk about Mitch Marner, I look at that. In my mind, the Maple Leafs are going to sign him without a doubt. I don't see anyone offer sheeting him 4 first-rounders for Marner is ridiculous. In my mind, he's a Maple Leafs to stay. I think it's extremely stupid that they're paying north of $10 million for 3 different players. That's another discussion. When I look at Patrik Laine, his future is foggy. For me, it's not clear cut that he's a Jet. I could definitely see him traded, and then subsequently that team he's traded to signs him. If it's the Montreal Canadiens, so be it. But hold on. Excuse me, that chicken. Fucking Angelos. If it's the Canadiens, I just want you guys to be very wary, because I've watched a lot of Winnipeg Jets game. I mean, apart from the Canadiens, they're the team that I watch the second most amount of games. And if you guys get fed up with Jonathan Drouin, and if there's some nights where you look at Jonathan Drouin and you just want to punch a hole in that TV screen, it's sort of the same with Patrik Laine. Maybe not as bad, because he can put the puck in the net much more No, I shouldn't say consistently. Much more often than Jonathan Drouin. He's by no means consistent. But if you get frustrated watching Jonathan Drouin, don't expect to see Patrik Laine and it's like the second coming of Mario Lemieux. There are some nights where he was, Jake, dreadful.
Yeah, no.
He was, I mean, there's some plays. There's this one game against the Minnesota Wild that you can find clips of it online. He's just not moving his feet. And he was missing all of his back check covering. He was just abysmal. It's one of those things you have to see it to believe it. But yeah, coming to think of it, I will make a video on that, because I know a lot of people see his goal scoring prowess. They see that 40-goal potential. This year he got 30 goals. And remember, a lot of that came in the month of November. Take away that month of November where he had that amazing 5-goal game. I think there's another game where he had a hat trick. He had a pretty abysmal year. So, I don't know. That's it. Go ahead.
I always hate when people say, take away that November. But you know what? That November happened.
But my point in saying that is that he's not consistent.
I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying.
To some extent, a lot of goal scorers aren't consistent. Like Brendan Gallagher scores 30 goals. He's a goal scorer. He's not consistent in terms of there's going to be slumps. But the difference between Gallagher and Laine is that when Gallagher's in a slump, he's doing more. He's working. He's playing defensive hockey. He's putting his body on the line, basically. Patrik Laine, he plays like a saggy nutsack sometimes, is the best way to put it. He definitely looks like one. Yeah, that's it. Anything else? Oh, my voice cracked.
No. Puberty time.
Yeah. Puberty. Yeah. If you guys see me picking my face, I'm like a fucking dry person. I shed skin like a snake. It's really annoying. Stu Johnson says he's better than Pat Chiretti. That's a good point, Stu Johnson. But that's like comparing shit to shit with a little bit of sugar on it. You know, not that those players are shit. That's maybe a bad example. Actually, I take that back. Pat Chiretti's shit. I was not a Pat Chiretti fan.
How about shit compared to whatever fucking chicken you ate?
Well, that player, that chicken is gonna be shit. So yeah, in the end of the day, it's all shit. Why don't we move on to our main topics? You guys can keep firing off questions there in the chat. Yeah. Remember, if you guys want to send in questions via Twitter, you can. If you want to call in via Skype, use the skin bin. You can also do that. Hopefully the technology will work. So we're going to move on to our next topic here, and that is players we love to hate. Because, let's face it, we watch hockey, we love it, but there are some players, they're just the villains. We look at their face, and similarly to when we watch Jonathan Drouin play, we just want to punch a hole through that TV screen. And me and Jake, we're going to kind of have a conversation here. We're going to have a discussion. We're going to discuss some players that we just cannot stand. They get under our skin for whichever reason, and these are just players we hate. I think the way it's going to work, we're going to go one by one.
Some of my players are going to be some that have already retired.
Yeah, and that's fine. This is all time. Yeah. You guys can
hate. But I do have a few players that are on my that are active, so to say.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, and you guys can join into the chat. Is there any players you guys cannot stand? I gotta admit, as you guys saw by the screen, I'm a Canadiens fan. There's going to be an overabundance of Boston Bruins. And not just the obvious names like Milan Lucic and Marchand. There are going to be some other people that maybe you guys like, in fact. There are some players that there aren't considered hated players, but I cannot stand them. And I'll explain why. I need to drink some Coke, so why don't you give the first one, Jake?
Okay, the first one is this is for obvious reasons that, and he is active in the NHL right now. But the first player I have is Ilya Kovalchuk, and the reasons that when Ilya Kovalchuk was signed to the Devils with this monster, just freaking 12-year deal where he was going to be possibly one of the highest earning players throughout the whole entire career. He was probably 3 years into this deal now. It was very on what's it
Long-term
called?
deal.
Yeah, it was not like Lou Lamoriello to do a deal like this.
Yeah.
So within the third year, he ends up saying, I'm leaving and going to Russia. Now, I defended Ilya Kovalchuk as a player to a good friend of mine. A good friend of mine who was a Devils fan who hated Ilya Kovalchuk. I remember my phone blowing up when he said he was going to Russia. And from him, it was like, I fucking told you he was a fucking scumbag. And shout out to Rob Stats. But he said, so just the simple fact that he did that, and now he's back in the NHL. And like the 2 times a year when the Devils play the Kings, it's just like I look at him and, I just want somebody to fucking just put him through the fucking glass.
Yeah. And it's funny because he decided to go back with the Kings to win a Stanley Cup. And it's like, in his mind, the Kings were those Kings teams, the addition of the Kings that won the Stanley Cup. But they're not like that anymore by any means. So
to be fair, in Russia, they probably just got the NHL 2014 season. Just like us, there's a good team, and just like the way that he is as a person, like I think it was during, I want to say last year during the Worlds.
Yeah.
They didn't win, and he just left the ice. Didn't like shake the hands and do all that. He just left the ice.
That was sleazy.
And even like when he was here, like he didn't get along with coaches. He was just not like he was a difficult player.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one game, like he didn't show up and he just was scratched or something.
Yeah.
This is when John McClain was the coach.
Yeah.
And so like he's just one of those players that are just like he's not a team player, and he's not even all that good. But not to mention, he's not a loyal player, and that's why I always
hold on. I'm gonna have to stop you there because his days in Atlanta, he was an amazing player.
Oh,
I'm not sure when he was with the Devils, but when he was with Atlanta, he was like comparable to Ovechkin.
He was a 30 goal scorer with the Devils in 2012.
Yeah,
and then he kind of tailed off a little bit, and you're thinking, okay, maybe it's an off year. And then he went to the KHL, and then he came back, and
yeah. I mean, I guess you can make that argument now, and I guess you got the last laugh because his year with the Kings was abysmal. He was not the best friend of Coach Willie Desjardins. He played in many games on the fourth line, which I'm sure a player like Kovalchuk, a proud player, that didn't really go by too very well. We're getting a lot of...
He'll be back in the KHL.
Probably. We're getting a lot of good answers in the chat. Stu Johnson says Kadri, can't stand that MFer. And I had Kadri on my list, so I'm going to delete that one since Stu Johnson already said it. Kadri is an asshole. And he's one of those players that you like him on your own team, but if he's playing against you, you don't like him. But I think even some of the most avid Maple Leafs fans, they look at Kadri and they're like, yeah, that play was dirty. That play was suspension worthy. But I think for me, the thing that annoys me the most about Nazem Kadri is that fucking face of his When he's on the when he's on the bench, I used to make my uncle laugh with my impression. His face would be like this, like he's about to cry. It was, it still is so annoying. I'm glad that asshole is in the Western Conference where I don't have to see his goddamn fucking brown olive skin face. I can say that I'm Arabic, believe it or not.
But you're like white Arabic.
Yeah, like
Like if I saw you, I wouldn't think you were Arabic. I would think like, ah, he's Italian.
yeah, I came out of the wound
Like,
really, really pale. In fact, we visited Syria. Everyone thought I was sick or something because I was so pale compared to everyone else.
you know, it's bad when you go to a third world country and they think you're sick.
Yeah. And by the way, my trip to Syria, my sister couldn't go because she developed chicken pox at the last second. We bought these toy guns, and Jake, they were so fucking realistic. We got the most realistic toy guns from Syria, and when you would press the trigger button, it would start moving or it would start vibrating, and I thought it was the coolest thing, but my dad didn't let me take it onto the airplane because we didn't want to get stopped. We did get stopped anyway because my dad is brown and has a mustache, but that's a whole nother story. My dad, I'm not saying this in a mean way, but he really kind of looks like Saddam Hussein. I mean, just that brown skin, sort of balding, brown, big black mustache.
You know, it's funny. I am not Arabic by any means. But my dad had a very long army coat, and very long hair. My dad, he's Native American. He's like a quarter Native American. So
Okay.
and I'm like an eighth. But so he had that dark complexion. My dad kind of looked like Osama bin Laden.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
A little bit, and I would tell him that, and he wouldn't be too happy when I used to say you look like Osama bin Laden.
You know, we our family knew a guy. His name was Osama, and he actually changed his name like because of the guy. I don't know if you've heard about him. Yeah. So, talking Habs.
No, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Talking
I think
Habs.
I've seen a picture of your dad, and I think I agree. He does kind of look like Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, he does. He does. Talking Habs says Stan Jonathan. Did you ever hear about that guy, or is he past your era?
He might be past my era.
So Stan Jonathan, the only reason I know him is because back when your frame is getting. Let me fix your frame. Back when the Montreal Canadiens Boston Bruins rivalry was at its height, and it got reignited in the early 2010s, but back when it was really bad, I believe in the 70s, there was fights. There was a lot of fights between both teams. And Stan Jonathan, who's not an overly tall man, picked a fight with, I forget his name, Bouchard. Something Bouchard. I forget his first name, my apologies. But he picked a fight with this player called Bouchard, who is much, much taller than him. And they're fighting, they're throwing punches, and he lands the biggest left. Stan Jonathan knocked out Bouchard, and his face was on the ice, and there was blood everywhere, and I think the ref came to help him out, and he started bleeding all over the ref. And I remember seeing that like earlier on YouTube, because I wasn't born when it happened, and I remember seeing that and I was traumatized. So that's why I know Stan Jonathan. But from what I hear, he was an asshole, and he recently got arrested, I believe. He got arrested, but I don't know. Did you hear about him?
He said it was no. It was Nealon and Jonathan
That got knocked out?
I don't know. I thought Nealon played for the Habs. Oh, he also played for Boston, but yeah, he played for the Habs.
Yeah. He's saying Nyland. He probably.
Yeah.
Wait, talking Habs. You don't like Nyland? That's a surprise.
Damn, no, he was
Chris Nyland.
Chris Nyland. Yeah,
Chris
Knuckles
Nyland.
Nyland. He's a freaking I wouldn't say Hall of Famer. Like he should be in the Canadian Ring of Honor, so to say.
He's
I know he's definitely like what he did for the Habs and stuff. He's like a folk hero to you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
It should.
He's like
Yeah.
what David Clarkson was for you guys. Just that guy who can fight, score 30
He
goals.
had a 30. Yeah, he had a 30 goal season.
Yeah,
And it pretty much there's a whole documentary. It was like the last of the Warriors or something like that was called.
yeah. He's saying that they.
Okay, he said no, they fought all the time. I love Nealon. I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
okay, good.
It's
Once
I'm
I love Chris Nealon. I never really got a chance to watch him play, but
yeah.
I watched a documentary on him, and
Hmm.
he's was about all the enforcers, and
Yeah. I mean,
so
I'd be hard pressed to find a Canadians fan that doesn't like Nealon. He is
like I said, he's a
awesome.
folk hero. He's a folk hero to you
Yeah.
guys.
And right now he
You
has a
know,
show on TSN 690. It's called Off the Cuff. Really, really good show. I love the guy, and I love to hear him talk. Even though, like, and I'm not saying this to make fun of him, but with his concussions, sometimes he has trouble saying the words, pronouncing the words. But that's fine. I still love his opinion. He's really funny. And what's funny is that I have the same problem, and I've never had a concussion. So there you go.
yeah, yeah. No, well, English isn't your first language,
Yeah.
so I don't know if it is or isn't. I don't know. You probably fucking speaking Klingon for all I know.
Yeah, yeah. So my players that I hate, I'm gonna start off. It's a 2-for-1. It's
Okay.
Marchand slash Lucic. Marchand slash Lucic are two of the classless players I've ever seen in my whole entire life. More so Brad Marchand, because as much as I hate Lucic, as much as I think he's a dirty player, he's annoying, he's classless, he's not as dirty as Brad Marchand somehow. Because Brad Marchand's tiny in comparison to Lucic, but so far, from what I've seen, Marchand has had more suspensions, I believe. He's done
I
more
mean,
dirty things. He does this thing, I bring it up. I fucking hate it. Someone would go to hit him, and he would literally duck so that they go flying heads over heels over him. And that's an extremely dangerous play to do in hockey. Kids do not do that. It can blow out their knee. They can fall headfirst on the ice. And he does that over and over and over again till this fucking day. It's fucking annoying. I cannot stand Brad
someone
Marchand.
reach it.
And the worst thing is that he's a good player. He's got talent. He's going to go down as one of the better players for the Bruins, but his reputation is going to be forever tarnished for doing stupid shit, whether it be diving, whether it be taking out players' knees, whether it be fucking licking someone's face. I hope he gets Staph aureus on his tongue. I hate Brad Marchand. Sorry if I blew out everyone's ears.
I actually see. I like Brad Marchand because he licks people's faces. I fucking think that's hysterical.
Yeah, shit.
Oh God, like and the fact that he's licking these sweaty men, like it's such a fucking macho sport,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just going up. Steve Ott used to do that too.
Yeah, yeah,
That was the first time I seen it. Was Steve Ott was when he was playing for I think St. Louis.
yeah.
In a face-off, he licked the fucking guy across from him.
And I was so happy to see that we talked about players that aren't as good in the playoffs as their regular season. Cut it how you want. He had a shit fucking playoff. He did not show up to play. He's one of their better players. And on that final game, Game 7, he was the reason that second goal went in. It was a bad fucking line change. And he's the reason it went in. He had a bad playoffs. And a day later, he's out partying with his shirt off. I don't want to see you with a shirt off. I already see your nose on a daily basis. That's enough trauma for me. And second of all, your team just lost in Game 7 Stanley Cup final, and you're out dancing. Dude, keep a low profile. I mean, people might disagree with me. I'm more conservative when it comes to that. I'm not saying you have to mourn and cry like a bitch, but don't go out dancing with your fucking shirt off, especially if you didn't help your team in the playoff series.
See, Matt, you can tell you're definitely young, and because I used to think like you.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: these players, this is their job,
Yeah.
and if you have a shitty day at work, you still go out and you still have fun.
Yeah.
You don't just sit in your house and the guy lost. He's like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
You don't just sit there and mourn it like your grandfather just died. That's
Yes, you are. You're
I
supposed to.
it
You
well,
would.
here's the thing.
You would never
Here's the
see a guy
thing.
like
You
Crosby do that.
I don't think Crosby. I think Crosby just sits in a room and watches hockey film until and he just every day he like marks that on calendar and just everything he does is hockey related from beginning to end of the season. You never ever hear of him ever being rumored to be with a girl or
Yeah.
be getting married or behind any controversy. He just literally just probably sits in a room, thinks about what he could do better, watches tape, and then goes to for a skate, and then does the same thing over and over, and
Yeah.
does nothing bothers him. He probably has no one to talk to. He probably just he probably has all his meals pre-made for 3 months, and it's probably the same, just chicken and asparagus.
Dude, it's probably like
And
some smoothies that has the exact amount of protein, the exact
yes,
amount,
the exact
and
amount
it's like
to the
tasteless.
freaking mill. Yeah, uh-huh.
Dude, you
And
put
that's
in
all
my
he is.
head. I have the image of that guy in a Clockwork Orange, but except it's Sidney Crosby, and his eyes are being held open as he's watching hockey tape. But that's
Uh-huh.
just the image you put in my head. Uh, yeah, no, fuck Brad Marchand. Brad Marchand's a fucking
Yeah.
punk, and there's I like the agitator. Don't get me wrong. I like a good agitator. Max Domi is an example of that, but he doesn't cross the line as much as a Brad Marchand. I mean,
Max Domi's dad did.
yeah,
Tried
Max
to.
Domi's dad. But like, say for example, if someone's at a face-off and he's not expecting and you just punch him in the head, or someone's kneeling down and you punch him in the head, agitators sometimes won't cross that line. That's just being an asshole, and your legacy is forever going to be tarnished. And I'm happy. I piss on your legacy. I hate you, Brad Marchand. You lick people's face, you can lick my dick with it. All right.
Hey.
You want to move on to the next player? We're doing
Yeah,
players we hate.
players we hate.
Yeah.
All
But
right, it's on top of me now, right?
yep.
I'm gonna go with a classic. I'm gonna go Sean Avery.
Oh, that's a classic.
Sean Avery is the player that you absolutely hate if he was not on your team, but
Yeah.
probably loved if he was on your team.
Yeah.
I obviously don't like him for the going back and forth at Martin Brodeur,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's kind of like because he did get under Brodeur's skin,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it was that because he did score a couple goals on him, and he would check Brodeur, and they actually put a rule in where you can't face you can't if you're trying to screen the goalie, you can't face the goalie and try
Yep.
and stand with your back to the play.
Yep. Yeah.
They put the Avery rule in, after a playoff game, and it kind of got Brodeur off his game.
Yeah.
The guy was a great agitator, but he's just kind of an asshole.
Which
And
I get what you're saying and I completely agree, but I gotta be honest, I think the rule's bullshit. I think you should be able to screen the goalie whatever which way it is. What do you think?
I'm gonna say no.
No,
I
yeah.
don't want him to go too. Love Martin Brodeur.
Yeah.
So,
But
so
I remember earlier that year, or later, sorry, later that, or the next season, it was a Philadelphia Flyers game. I'm sorry, I forget who they were playing against. And Chris Pronger was on the Flyers, and it was overtime. And I think the Flyers had a power play. And the coaching staff, they were actually really smart because Chris Pronger's a giant. They said, Pronger, get your fat ass in front of the net and just screen the goalie. And he didn't go to the extent of Avery where he was like waving the stick, but he kind of like put his arm at a 90-degree angle. And it didn't even look that intentional, to be honest. And the Flyers scored on that play, and the goal was called off because Pronger put his arm in front. And that was, I think, the only time I've seen the Avery rule applied to someone that wasn't Sean Avery. But yeah, I get what you're saying. He was an asshole. And you know who probably hated Sean Avery the most? His teammates. Because whenever Sean Avery did something stupid and it sparked a fight, his teammates would have to jump in, and they probably must have been like, oh man, I have to defend this guy again and receive a bunch of punches to the face just because this guy decided to stick Tim Thomas in the head, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that was.
they must have hated him the most. You guys listening in the
Yeah.
chat, or if you guys are listening after the live stream is done, make sure to comment which players you hate the most. As for me, I'm going for another Boston Bruins. And again, I'm sorry, Canadians fan, there's going to be a little bias. And Devils fan too, there's going to be a little bias.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple Rangers probably.
Yeah. Well,
Couple Metropolitan Division play. I mean, it's just where we've grown up, and and just we've always seen these certain players.
yeah.
Because there's one I'm gonna shock everyone with my next one.
Okay.
Because I am already not gonna like him. I already know. So
All right.
just go.
All right. So he's a fairly new player then.
Fairly new.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that. I'll say mine's. And it's a player on the Bruins. It's not as like a Marchand. It's not a Lucic. It's not even like a guy like Boychuk. You guys probably don't remember this person. It's fucking Andrew Ference. I hate this fucking guy. And there are many reasons, but there's a main reason. And this is it. If you're looking at the screen, Jake, you can't see it. Andrew Ference in a playoff game against the Montreal Canadiens. It was in Montreal. He scores a goal. His first goal in I don't know how many months. He's not known for his goal scoring prowess. He's a very shitty player, to say the truth. Actually, I take that back. No one in the NHL is a shitty player, in my opinion. But he scores a goal, his first goal in months. He turns to the fan, looks straight into the camera, and flips the bird. And I get it, there's a rivalry. You don't like the team. But to be that classless, to stoop that low, dude, grow a fucking nutsack. Don't fucking do that. You look at some of the classy players, John Beliveau would never do that. What am I doing comparing Beliveau to fucking Andrew Ference? It's a fucking insult.
The only thing they have in common is that they both breathed oxygen at one time. This is the only thing they have in common.
And then I remember he went to Edmonton, and they named him the captain. And I was thinking, what are you guys doing? You're naming this guy the captain? Within one season, he was gone. I think the only significant thing he did in the Oilers was march in the gay parade. But I fucking hate this guy. And there's like there's this thing that was going around in the early 2010s that they're the big bad Bruins, and every player that were on the Bruins, they had to act big and tough, even though they weren't big and tough. And he was an example of that. Actually, speaking of Crosby, he once had a fight with Andrew Ference. Crosby doesn't fight much, but he fought Andrew Ference early in his career, and he whipped Andrew Ference's ass. I think it was Crosby. I think, yeah. Someone might want to fact check me, but I'm super excited to hear your next guy, because you said it's someone that's rather unexpected. So why don't you fire away your next one while I take a sip of delicious Diet Coke?
Sponsored by Diet Coke. Capo Capo. I need to hate Capo Capo.
What? Oh, just because he's not with the Devils?
One, he's not with the Devils. Two, the Devils could have chose him, and they took Hughes. So if he's better than Hughes, that's the more reason I'm going to hate him. So I need to hate him just based on that. Not based on anything else that he's done or didn't do or anything he said. I hate Capo Capo.
Yeah.
Capo Capo. So I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. Like, I didn't hate him when he wasn't a Devil. Now that when he wasn't drafted, and then the second that the Rangers called his name, I don't like him. It's just how it goes. As a fan, I can't like him, and what makes it so different and special. It's like Hughes 1, Capo 2. So it's gonna constantly be that conversation. The teams are 7 miles apart, so it's constantly gonna be who's better.
Yeah, that's true. So you're saying if Hughes was drafted, say the Devils would have taken Capo Caco instead, You would be here sitting today saying the same about Hughes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, there you go.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair as a fan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think like right now I have to hate Capo because he plays for the big bad Rangers,
Yeah.
and
My next player, he's again in the same light of Sean Avery and Steve Ott and those type of guys. He's sort of an expected player. A lot of people hate him, and this one's special because as a fan, I've liked him for the majority of his career. I've liked this player. His team won a Stanley Cup recently. That's a clue. They won a Stanley Cup recently. He's extremely controversial. He's gotten suspended many times. Do you know who I'm talking about, Jake?
Drew Doughty.
No. But I sent you the list, and Doughty's my next one. I'm actually talking about Tom Wilson.
Oh, okay.
Now, Tom
Okay.
Wilson, it's special because, as I said, I used to love this player. I would look at him play, and I would say, "Man, he's walking the line. He's like he's on the edge. He plays with an edge. He hits. He finishes his checks. Sure, sometimes he crosses the line, but he's doing his job. He can score goals sometimes. He can put up points." And I always said I like Tom Wilson. But that all changed this past season because when you don't really hate a player, then he does something to your own team and you start hating him. You start seeing what everyone else was saying. Well, that was me with Tom Wilson. It was a normal regular season game, Canadians versus the Capitals, and he leveled Brendan Gallagher with a huge hit. And it was a clean hit, granted, or a borderline. I think every hit with Wilson is kind of borderline. But after I saw that hit, I had an epiphany. I saw that Tom Wilson, the point of a hit is to separate the man from the puck. Tom Wilson doesn't do that. That is not his goal. When Tom Wilson hits, he wants to hurt the player. And sometimes he wants to injure the player. And if you guys don't agree with me, that's fine. I'm just saying my opinion. But when I look at Tom Wilson, he hits to hurt. And I do not agree with that whatsoever. There's way to do clean hits to separate the man from the puck in a clean way, shoulder to shoulder, and he does not do that. And for that, he's an asshole. I don't hate him on the same lines of like a Brad Marchand or a Lucic, but he's up there with one of my hated players. Stu Johnson says Patrick Kane. Or is it Evander Kane? He says Kane, but I'm assuming it's Patrick.
Maybe it's all Canes.
All Canes.
All Canes. He hates when people are lazy and they can't, they have a hurt leg and they can't walk, and so they put all their weight on a cane. And Evander Kane,
Yeah.
Candy Canes.
Yeah, that was a dad joke.
That was definitely a dad joke. Oh yeah,
Yeah. Well,
definitely.
Surprisingly, I actually hate Evander more than Patrick. But Patrick Kane, I think it's obviously stemming from those rape allegations a few years back. I mean, I guess I could see why people might hate him. But I'm the type of person, I'm more like he's innocent till proven guilty. And hey, he was proven innocent, so I personally can't hate him. But I could see why he could tick off some people. He's kind of a douchebag, but I wouldn't really say a hated player. What do you think?
I don't really like Evander Kane. Patrick Kane, obviously, the whole rape allegations. That's always gonna hold a place. So I mean, it's hard to, though, if he did or didn't do it. A part of me thinks he didn't do it, and it was kind of just a girl,
I'm leaning
looking for a
towards
mate.
there too.
You have to be careful saying that these days because people, oh yeah, no girls ever make anything like that up.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you kind of always had that icky feeling when talking about Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
But Evander Kane, he's kind of like one of the. Though it seems like he's playing over in San Jose. He kind of found himself a role.
I don't know if I should say this. I might get in a lot of trouble.
Say it.
Okay, I'll say it. I mean, I think about innocent till proven guilty to the point where, you know, that Michael Jackson documentary?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember everyone watching it and they were saying, this is horrible. How can Michael do this? And I watched it and I was listening to the victims talk. And I remember thinking, something's fishy about this. I mean, I'm not buying a lot of this, especially for one of those guys who was supposed to do a Michael Jackson Cirque du Soleil, and at the last moment they didn't choose him, and then that's when he came out against Michael Jackson. But I think the reason why I think that way is because, not to get too personal, but my field is a scientific field, and what I do as a student, I read a lot of scientific articles, and we have to always find study limitations and reasons that would disprove the study, basically. So I kind of I'm skeptical. I always think, I don't know about that. Do I need to put my foot in my mouth?
No, you know what? I didn't like the documentary because it was all shit that was already fucking said about the guy.
Yeah,
It's all shit we knew, and like all of a sudden, like, oh my god, we're not gonna play Michael Jackson songs on the radio.
yeah.
It's like, you knew all the allegations against him. Yeah, but now somebody else is they're talking about him again. It's like, but you knew. It's the same thing with the R. Kelly stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not playing R. Kelly songs on the radio. It's like, but have you heard I Believe I Could Fly? You know, no. But it's like, we knew all this stuff. Why are all of a sudden, like, you know,
Do you think
everybody's coming out of
do you think their
again?
child watches Space Jam and they have to skip over the R. Kelly song?
Now it's like dubbed over, and it's like it's like somebody else
Kesha.
singing it. Kesha, all those things.
Oh my god. But yeah, I hate to say it. Because there's a lot of people that are like, I'm not listening to Michael Jackson music anymore. I was watching the documentary, and they played some excerpts of Michael Jackson music, and it got me thinking, like, wow, I forgot how good of a singer this guy is. And I think after I was done with it, I downloaded a bunch of MJ songs. So it had a reverse effect on me. Let's get back to hockey. Stu Johnson says Kreider for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I don't like Kreider either. No.
Yeah, Kreider's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
The Canadiens, 2014, they were primed to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. They were way better than the Rangers. And, yeah, Chris Kreider slid skates first into a goalie. I don't care what anyone says. If someone gets tripped from behind, they're going to fall face first, not skates first. If they fall skate first, that doesn't make sense. They did it on purpose. I think the other argument is stupid. I don't know. Excuse me. Chicken. I wasn't a fan of Chris Kreider for that reason, and just because he's so notorious for injuring goalies. But I think over the years, he's kind of cooled down a little. I still by all means hate him, but it's cooled down. One player I do hate, and it's my next player, and Jake Link mentioned him. That is Drew Doughty. I hate this piece of shit to the point where I collect hockey jerseys. I have a closet full of hockey jerseys, like the most random teams. I have a Carolina Hurricanes jersey. There was this beautiful mint, brand new Drew Doughty jersey that was on special back in a store in Canada, and it was very cheap on special. I couldn't buy it. I can't stand the guy. He bitches, he whines, and just having watched Canadians and growing up in Montreal, PK Subban, a defenseman of the similar ilk as Drew Doughty. Some people will say Doughty's better, but he's in the same category as Doughty. He got a lot of flack. People would say he dives, he whines to the refs, he's a crybaby, he makes a scene on the ice. And I would say, hey guys, you realize Drew Doughty's doing the exact same thing? Why don't you give him some flack? And I said that to Tommy once, because Tommy hated PK Subban. And I would say, listen, Drew Doughty's doing the same thing. Like, people would trip in and he'd throw a temper tantrum. Just YouTube it, right? Drew Doughty temper tantrum. There's bunches of them.
My favorite Drew Doughty moment is, bro, you suck at hockey.
Yeah, like,
You're
just
like been in the
stuff.
minors for like 6 years and you're on the fourth line.
Yeah, just stuff like that. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, and by the way, that guy he was saying it to, that was actually Paul Byron, who was placed on waivers, claimed by the Canadians, and then had a couple 20-goal season. So, playing the minors, shut up, Drew Doughty. Go fuck yourself. And plus, you're fat.
It was a fat ass, too.
I was speaking to Drew Doughty, not you, by the way.
No, oh, yeah.
Do you have any more?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a few obvious ones, like Eric Lindros. I never liked Eric Lindros.
Oh, really?
I think he's a piece of shit.
How come?
Quite frankly,
From a millennial.
I think like that. I think like doing what he did to the Quebec Nordiques.
Yeah.
Saying I don't want to go there because I don't speak French, and then well, okay, you're going to Philly, and there's always been like rumors that he used to sleep with like John LeClaire's wife, and and he had a phantom black eye, and there's just he just didn't seem like he pretty much held the Flyers over the fire to pay him, and just does not seem like a overall good person. Yeah. And a part of me, like in the 99, I want to say 2000. Yeah, the 2000s Stanley Cup playoffs. He came back, and he was only back for like half a game, and old Scott Stevens just leveled him. And I actually have a great memory of that. There was a girl. She was my girlfriend. It was the game. I want to say game 6, the one where the Devils won, and they were going to the Cup Finals. And I had just got back from like a camping trip, so like we didn't see each other for a week or speak to each other for a week. So we were playing, and she was going down on me, and Patrick Elias scored a goal.
And
as I was watching it, as she was doing, I go, and I remember her still to this day, the sound that came out of her mouth when I jumped up. It was, I went, yeah, and I jumped up, and all I heard, I might be over exaggerating, but that's the way I heard it. And I was like, yeah.
You should say that in your stand-up. That's a pretty funny story.
Yeah, no, it is, and like I just remember, and I kind of went back to her doing what she was doing, and then it was a good day.
Do you know a TV show called Kenny versus Spenny?
I've heard of it,
dude.
Somebody else was asking me about it.
It is the greatest, the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life, Jake. I've never laughed harder than when I watched Kenny versus Penny. You listeners out there, I implore you, watch these people. They were a show they used to run on CBC, and CBC's like this big channel in Canada, and they would do the dumbest things. I don't know how they got on CBC, and they eventually moved to Comedy Network, but they are fucking funny. The premise is that they're two guys, and every episode they have a competition. It's a different competition. Like one episode would be who can blow the biggest fart, and they're just eating beans left and right and farting into these little machine that measures methane.
Oh my god, they're a fucking real life Terrence and Phillip.
Yeah, and actually one of them was a writer on South Park. Kenny wrote on South Park briefly, but
Kenny Hotz.
Yeah, your story made me think of that because there's an episode, it's who could win a cockfight. And it wasn't a chicken, there's like their penis, who could win a penis fight. And one of them like put pepper spray on his penis and he shot it out on the other guy. It was hilarious. And he had like this bagel knife, and yeah, his penis was dangerous. Anyway, the other guy, in order to prep for the fight, he got a penis enlarger. And it's the one in Austin Powers. It's like that cylinder that you put on your dick and you have to pump
Okay.
air. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I've heard of it. I've not used it, but
Yeah. Well, he was using it and he got it stuck. And he's asking the crew, how am I supposed to get this off? Like, this is after he's pumped all the air in. And just with the suction and everything, he got it stuck on his dick. So he just tried pulling it out really hard. And finally, it yanked it off. He yanked it off one shot, and it made that noise that came out of your girlfriend's mouth. I can't replicate it. The pop.
oh,
Yeah. It was. I don't think I've ever laughed as hard as when I saw that. That noise. That was great.
yeah.
Anyway, other players that I hate. James Neal, he's a piece of shit. James Neal, he does that thing where he's sneaky dirty, but he is dirty. He'll like elbow people in the head. He'll knee people in the head. He's sneaky dirty, and then say the guy on the other team comes to fight him, answer for his actions, he'll like just turtle and drop to the ground. This is something that most people wouldn't see unless they watch a lot of James Neal, which I've done over the years. I can't stand him, and he's one of those guys that, you know, someone who just has a punchable face for whichever reason. I cannot stand his face. I just want to take my Diet Coke and spray it all over him.
Damn, it's fucking Coca-Cola paying for this. This is like the third time you've mentioned Coke.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Very brand loyal.
Yeah. Other than that, going back to the Boston Bruins, well, Sean Thornton, I cannot stand this guy. And this is just a testament of how stupid Boston Bruins fans are. Seriously, the New England fans, they are fucking horrible. I'm sorry if there's any of my subscribers that are New England fans. Obviously, you guys are the exception. But Sean Thornton, everyone viewed him as like a legend when he retired. Everyone was saying, "Oh, we're gonna miss you, Thornton," and I was the only one saying, "This guy's a piece of shit." And this is the guy who slew-footed someone, and while he was on the ice, punched him and knocked him out. One of the most sickening things I've ever seen. Sean Thornton on Brooks Orpik. Look it up, guys. How could you guys ever revere that? If that player was on my team and he did that, I would not be commending him. I wouldn't be calling him a legend. I'd be calling him a piece of shit. And Boston Bruins fans, they look at it, they eat it all up. Because that's what New England sports fans are.
I agree. I'm a Jets fan, and I hate the Patriots. So yeah,
Yeah.
they all suck.
Yeah. Ken Linesman, the Rat. Do you know Ken Linesman? Because he doesn't ring a bell.
It's Talking Habs and Ron Hextall.
Yeah, you know him being a
Yeah.
goalie
Ron
savant.
Hextall. He was a Flyers, a legendary Flyers goalie. I think he did. He play for the? Did he play for the Nordiques? I want to say he did.
I don't know. I'm a little too young.
Ron Hextall was the puck controlling goalie before Martin Brodeur.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Ron Hextall. He seems like he could be an asshole.
Yeah.
I always kind of liked the one that died, the goalie who recently died, Ray Emery.
Oh, yeah.
I always kind of liked him.
Oh, God rest his soul. But
Yeah.
he was kind of an asshole. He was kind
I
of an
think that's
asshole.
why I liked him. There's
Yeah.
a thin line between like certain players. I guess when you see certain players and they don't really affect your team, you really don't care what they do.
Yeah.
Except like a player like Matt Cook, who's a fucking sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I both agree, Matt Cook is probably the worst on this whole entire list. I can't think of anybody.
He's definitely, he's not, for me, he's not the most hated one because he hasn't really done anything to personally offend me. But he's definitely the dirtiest one.
But he's done a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
and
definitely.
There's no saying, the guy's a repeat offender, and,
Absolutely.
and he needs to be, and, I don't even know if he's still playing.
Yeah.
Last I heard he was on the Wild.
And actually, I take that back. There was one year where he blew out Andrei Markov's knee with a dirty fucking hit. I take that back. Yeah, he is a piece of shit. You're right.
He's
Um,
probably one of the worst that I could think of.
yeah.
Um, I mean, as far as like, I mean, I think there's a lot more players in the league that I like. And
Saggy Nutsack, he put a pretty common answer. Ryan Kessler. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of people don't like Ryan Kessler, and he says he loves it when Max Domi knocked him out. Do you remember that?
I know what? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Um, I would have to say, I'm surprised no one mentioned this, but Dion Phaneuf.
Yeah. Panef is one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel, you know what? I don't really hate him. I kind of feel bad for him because he was nominated as captain for the Maple Leafs, and a lot of people shit on him because of the money he's making and then the fact that he was captain. And I was the only one saying, guys, that was the contract that was given for him, and it's he was given captaincy, but he's not like a player that doesn't work hard. He's a hardworking player, but unfortunately the results aren't always there. At this point, he's a sixth defenseman at best. But I hate to say it, I always kind of liked Dion Phaneuf for some ever reason. Um,
I never really liked him. It just
yeah.
done rub me the wrong way with him.
I know a lot of
Uh,
Maple Leafs fans that started calling him Fagoof because they just thought he was the biggest goof. Um, it's funny that Saggy Nutsack brings out Max Domi because up until the point where he came with the Canadians, I hated Max Domi. I did not like that player, and it's just a prime example of when he's on your team, you like him. When he's not on your team, you can't stand him.
Wayne Simmons for me now.
Yeah, yeah,
Wayne Simmons, he's definitely one of those players like such a you know a player like they don't make anymore. The guy could score 20 goals and also rack up a couple fights,
yeah, yeah.
and he's going to be probably more than likely playing on the line with Hughes. So I have a feeling he's going to be protecting Hughes.
And Talking Hab says Ulf Samuelson was as bad as Matt Cook, and
Okay,
I could definitely see that. And
yeah,
a lot of people loved it when Max Domi, Ty Domi, knocked out Ulf Samuelson. He just dropped him with the biggest fucking sucker punch, and a lot of people loved that. Ty Domi was no angel of his own in his
no,
own right.
yeah, he had a few run-ins with my team in the playoffs.
Yeah, but
Um,
that
he's on my list, I think.
yeah, that moment where Ty Domi knocked out Samuelson, I think a modern day version of that, millennial version of that, if you will, would be when Dalton Prout knocked out Milan Lucic. What somewhat of a sucker punch, but it was so satisfying is the right word because Milan Lucic is a piece of shit and he doesn't lose fights very often, and just seeing him get knocked on his ass, people were sending thank you letters to Prout. They loved it. I could see that
Yeah.
being comparable to the Alf Samuelson situation. Just a few more examples before we wrap it up. We just crossed an hour and a half here. Chris Neal, similar to Sean Thornton, just repeat the same arguments. And this one is one that I'm sure no one else has. And that's why I left him for the end. Rasmus Ristolainen. Can't stand him for some reason.
Is it because he has a long name and it's not easy to say?
Yeah, too many R's in his name.
Do we need Raston Ryan? Imagine if Raston Ryan. You
Yeah,
sound like a Chinese guy trying to say lobby.
yeah, yeah. When I heard the story about John Scott choking him out in the locker room, I got the biggest boner because I cannot stand Rasmus Ristolainen. I said I don't know the reason why, but I think it may be related to the fact that when he celebrates with a goal, it's a overly douchey celebrations, and I'm one of those boring people. I like to see people score goals, then maybe put the stick up if I'm feeling a little saucy, and then just go to the bench.
If I'm feeling a little bit, if I feel a little bit, maybe I'll raise my hand and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
give a little something something for the fans.
The only time I'll allow an excessive celebration is if Thornton scores 4 goals.
Ah. Yeah, and then you have to lock the room.
Yeah.
And you have fucking crucifix you have over your door. It's gonna fucking shame everybody.
Do you want to explain that to younger viewers in case they've never heard about it?
Oh yeah. Fucking Joe Thornton said it was after Tom Turner scored 4 goals against the New York
Yeah,
Rangers,
hurdle. Yeah.
and everybody was going on and on about it, and because he did a crazy deke, like through the legs and put it in, and it pretty much ended Martin Biron's career
It
right
it
there.
did end it. Yeah.
It did, and that was the last game you ever played. And then off the record, it was said Joe Thornton said, if I scored 4 goals in a game, I would take my cock out and whip it around the ice.
Yeah.
That was said off the record, but some reporter actually thought that this was worth reporting,
Yeah.
and so so the whole joke became like, and there was one time I scored 4 goals with Joe Thornton in NHL whatever year it was. And I was like, because I traded him to the Devils because he was the best available, and he was there, and I scored 4 goals with him in a Stanley Cup playoff game, and I took a picture of it, and I was like, I think I may have even tweeted it to him, saying, Joe, how come they didn't put it in the glitch of your celebration?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
So,
triangle button. Yeah, but that was
yeah, triangle,
hilarious.
triangle, square.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, yeah. I mean, Joe Thornton never ever will score 4 goals. He'd get 4 assists in a game.
Yeah.
Maybe we'd get a little ball cleavage there, just.
Yeah. Oh man, did you ever hear that story? Do you listen to Spitting Chicklets?
No.
It's a great podcast. It's with Paul Bissonnette. Someone was saying I think some ex San Jose Shark. I want to say Setaguchi. No. It was someone who used to play with Joe Thornton on the Sharks. He was saying a Joe Thornton story, and it is one of the best stories I've ever heard in my life. So, the team won a game or something like that. They all decided to go to some fancy restaurant, and Joe Thornton was paying for the whole team, and they were drinking all night. They were eating, so the final bill was ridiculous, and the final bill was ridiculous. So then Joe Thornton picks up the tab, and I think he gave his credit card, and after he said to the girl like, "Hey, finally, listen, I'm gonna pay in cash." And Jake, it was some ridiculous number. It was like $15,000, something like that. And he says, I want to pay in cash. So he gives the cash to the lady. And the next day, he gets a call from the credit card company. They say, "Hey, did you just spend $15,000? And it turns out the waitress accepted the money from Joe Thornton, but she also took it from his credit card.
Oh shit!
She like double stole money. I might get the
So
story
she
a little.
paid. So she probably she took $15,000, and then she just charged his card $15,000.
Exactly.
And took she probably made a tip and then another tip on top of that.
Exactly. I might get the story
Wow.
mixed up, a few details, but that was the main point. Like she stole double money from
That's
him.
like grand larceny, isn't it? Something like that. Like she could have done. She probably done time.
Yeah. And this player, he's talking to Joe Thornton over the phone. He's saying, "You have to go report it. What are you gonna do? You have to report it to the restaurant." And Joe Thornton's like, "Hey, listen, you win some, you lose some. You win some, you lose some." And he didn't do anything about it.
Oh shit!
Oh, that's a
That's
good place to
hysterical.
end off. What do you think?
That is great. That is a great story.
Yeah.
He seems like a fun guy to just hang out with.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah,
That's a good motto. Well,
that's a good way to go through life. Joe Thornton, he lost 15 grand, and then what are you gonna do?
yeah, it's a good motto, and I think this was a relatively good show. Thank
Yeah.
you for you guys in the comments. Stu Johnson, Talking Habs, Saggy Nutsack. What was the other guy? Sucking Titties for Milk or whatever he was called. I suck titties for bucks. Thank you all for being in the chat. I appreciate it as always. You guys are the best. Hey, we just hit 214 subscriber, which is great. Couldn't have done it without you guys. I had a blast today. Remember,
Yeah, it was fun.
make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to tune in every Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the Sin Bin Hockey
Hey,
podcast.
you know what? You guys subscribe, then you tell a friend to subscribe, then they tell a friend to subscribe, and then it just goes down the line. And then we get 1 million subscribers, and then Matt and I will start doing makeup tutorials.
Yeah. Hey, if I get 1,000 subscribers, I'll do a Joe Thornton hat trick on the air. So there you go, guys. Again, thank you very much on behalf of Jake, on behalf of myself. My name is Matt. Keep your stick on the ice.
Your head in the clouds.